All right, so here we go, the very last Lunch and Learn of 2022. Thank you for being here today. Mary Lou, you know me, but Kristen, if you don't know me, my name is Jen Laffin. I am the founder of Jen Laffin Coaching. I am a coach for high achieving women who struggle with self-doubt. Today, we're talking about the fear of failure, which is something that affects a lot of high achieving women and keeps them from truly reaching their potential, because there's a difference between your potential and being high achieving, whereas we are high achieving because we pride ourselves on getting the job done. But in the process of doing that, a lot of the time we keep ourselves in our safety zone, in our comfort caves, and just keep doing and redoing what we've always done because we know we can get success that way. The fear of failure is a real thing, but it doesn't have to be. So today I'm going to talk about the fear of failure, why it affects us, and how we can a workaround so that we don't have to let it stand in the way of us reaching our potential, reaching any goal we want to set for ourselves, whether that's working out or writing a book or getting a new job or anything it is you want for yourself. If you are fearing failure, you are not going to reach your goals. So let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about on how not to fear failure is to just get a basic definition of failure. And failure is not getting the results that you had hoped for or that you had expected. The results maybe that you had planned for. Okay, you don't get the exact results you were looking for. When this happens to us, when we don't get the results we are looking for, a lot of things come into play. It's not just the fact that you didn't get the result you were looking for, but it is also that past conditioning that we've been maybe raised with and thinking our whole entire lives that failure is not acceptable, that failure is a mark on our own character. All of those things are not true. Those were stories that were given to us by other people, by society, maybe by families, by the way we were raised. We are adults, and so we can decide what we want to make failure mean. So be aware of how, not just how you're defining failure, but how you are making the possibility of failure a reflection of yourself and your own self-worth. As high achieving women, we often will associate our self-worth with our accomplishments. And so if we fail at our accomplishment, we think it's a mark against our self-worth, and that is not true. So when you try to do something and you don't get the results you were looking for, you get to decide what you want to make that mean. Okay. You can decide that it means that you tried something that didn't work, or you can make it mean that you figured out a way that didn't work. You tried something, at least you left the starting line, you got yourself going. And when you have that kind of an attitude about failure, that it's just finding a way that didn't work, it is so much easier to get, back on the horse and try again. And it doesn't feel like such a catastrophe, because we know that when we feel like a catastrophe or feel like a failure, there is absolutely no way we're going to meet our goals. Okay, so you get to decide what you want failure to mean. All right. The other thing too is what I talked about before about high achieving women and attaching our identity to our results. Okay. Your identity, your worth is yours. You do not have to attach any kind of accomplishment, any kind of achievement, any kind of success, any kind of result to deciding if you are a worthy person or not. A lot of us women in general struggle with that. Okay. And that's something too that will keep us from fearing failure, so that we don't go after our big goals. So how can we not fear failure? And as we go through these, I'm hoping some of you will pipe in with some connection, or just kind of let us, some conversation around these. So how do we not fear failure? Well, if you've been coming to Lunch and Learns, you know all about the primal brain and the way the primal brain works. And if you didn't, I'll give you a short recap, which is the primal brain is the oldest part of our brain, the least developed part of our brain that still thinks that we all live in caves. And that part of our brain controls our thoughts and it controls our emotions. The primal brain has three goals: to keep us safe, to keep us alive, and to keep us lazy. And if we ever try to do anything that is going to threaten any of those three objectives, the primal brain starts freaking out, sends us thoughts and emotions that pull us back into our comfort cave. Okay. So if you understand how the primal brain works and that it is designed to basically keep you tucked nice and safely inside your comfort cave, you can understand how to override the fear of failure. Because when you're trying something new and the brain senses that there could be danger because it's something brand new, you can override that by being able to tell your brain, like, you know what, this really isn't a big deal. Like, this is not a matter of life and death, like you're making it seem. I'm not going to spend a lot of my energy on that. All those different things that freak the brain out, you can kind of override that and be like, this really is not that big of a deal. So it's not that big of a deal that I go to the gym and work out today. All right. Even though the brain may be telling you, well, that's going to take a lot of your energy. You probably don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, secondly, as high achieving women, we also tend to be perfectionists. And we've talked about this in Lunch and Learn before about our drive for perfectionism. So if you are doing something new, something challenging and difficult, I want you to think about the results you are expecting. And are you expecting perfection from yourself? Because if you are, you know that you are opening yourself up to all kinds of self-doubt. When we demand perfection from ourselves, we invite in imposter syndrome that tells us we're not good enough, we don't know enough, we're not talented enough, all those, we don't know what we're doing, all of those kinds of things. So checking your perfectionism is a great way to get past the fear of failure. Because if you can tell yourself, like, I'm just going to give it a try and see what happens, you might surprise yourself with the results that you get, which is really cool. And I always try to tell my clients, like, when you're starting out toward a goal and you don't know, like a lot of us we wait until we know all the steps. Like, I have to know what's going to happen and then what happens after that, and then what happens after that before I'll even begin. And sometimes it's impossible to know what all the steps are until you start moving. So I always try to remind them, like, one step at a time. Take your first step and be open to the revealing of what your next step is. Okay. Don't stay stuck in neutral because you don't know all the steps, because you don't have perfect control over everything. I want you to start looking at failure as a learning experience. Okay. When something happens and you don't get the results you were looking for, what can you learn from it? Okay. Maybe you would learn something that you would never be able to get any other way, something that didn't work that you thought would work. Okay. Maybe then you can kind of like spend some time thinking about it and determine how you might need to change things around next time. If you didn't try and have that experience, you wouldn't know what changes to make, right? Giving yourself permission to be a beginner when you're trying something new and something hard, and you know that when you start something as a beginner, There are going to be missteps along the way. Giving yourself permission to be a beginner, to not be perfect at what you're doing, is an incredible gift you can give yourself on your journey to learning and your journey to really creating any goal you want in life. So think back to yourself, like, when was the last time you gave yourself permission to be a beginner? Can you think of one? Yeah. This is why I like to try to learn like a new hobby or something that I haven't ever done, or maybe that I haven't done in a really long time, because it reminds me of what it is like to be a beginner and to not know what to do, and to be able to calm my nervous system down from freaking out, because I know that eventually I will figure it out. Okay. That mindset, that growth mindset that we've talked about, super important when you are trying something new. Another way that we can stop fearing failure is stop comparing ourselves to others. When we are doing something new for the very first time, it is really tempting to look at those who are ahead of us and compare ourselves to them. Okay, whether we know it or not. I see this a lot with my writers, and we actually have this analogy where we talk about, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 31. Okay, they were beginners once too. We tend to forget that. Like, we see somebody doing something that we admire and that we want to be able to do, and we forget that they had to be beginners at one time too. Okay, so give yourself permission to be that beginner. Try not to compare yourself. So for instance, like, let's say I'm going to use the example of joining the gym, because I just joined a gym as well. Okay. And I go to the gym and I look at these people. Like, one of the new things that I'm doing is I'm taking a yoga class. I've never done yoga before. It's something that I've always wanted to do. My doctor has said it's a great, activity. So the very first yoga class I went to, I walk in, and unfortunately I didn't get there early enough. And so when I walked into the studio, the only place it was left to put my mat was in the very front row. It's like, what is happening here, right? So of course I start to panic, because I'm looking around at everybody else in the classroom and I'm like, ooh, all these people look like they know what they're doing. They're stretching and they know all like the moves and everything. And it was so easy for me to feel this rise of emotion inside me, because I was experiencing this for the very first time and I was comparing myself to them. But when I was able to stop and say, hey, wait a minute, this is like my very first yoga class. I don't have to do this perfectly. I'm just learning. It doesn't mean anything when the instructor comes over to me and adjusts my arms, right? Like, she's helping me so that I can become proficient at it. But if I let myself look around and see everybody else who knew exactly what they were doing and feel inferior to them because of that, I would not have still be going to yoga. I would have been like, nope, not doing that. That's not for me. Okay. So just be very, very aware of when you are comparing yourselves to others. Okay. Another way that we can help ourselves not fear failure is to get super clear on our why. Why is it that we want this outcome? Why is it that we want this result? And I've talked about this before. A lot of times when we are working towards a goal, we get so focused on the doing that we forget about why we're doing it. Okay, so get super clear with yourself of why you want to reach that goal, why you want to do the hard thing that fear is keeping you from doing because you're afraid of failing at it. Okay, and this is something that I think helps with every single goal that you set, but especially for those ones that are super hard for you or that are definitely outside of your comfort zone. So it's like, why do you want to learn how to do yoga? Why does that matter to you? So for me, like, my why is Well, I'm getting a little bit older. Like I've had some hip pain. I don't want to have that discomfort anymore. So I'm going to learn yoga as a way of loosening up those joints so that I can move for a much longer time than if I don't do yoga, because yoga stretches us and it makes our muscles stronger. It'll make growing older easier. I'll be able to move around more. That's super important to me. But also I know that yoga has a very restorative, meditative part of it. And that is something that I'm exploring for myself, which is another reason why I keep going back to that yoga class, even though I keep making mistakes every time I'm there. I keep looking around at everybody else and seeing how easy it is for them and forgetting that at one time they were a beginner too. And I keep showing up for myself because my why matters. Okay, so remember your whys. And often, and I've talked about this in past lunch and learns before, as you are doing your goal setting, make sure you are including your whys as a part of that. Okay, that is super important. So Mary Lou, I know you and I talked about going to the gym at the beginning of Lunch and Learn. Why? Why do you want to do that? Like, ask yourself, why do I want to go to the gym?
I need to lose weight.
Okay.
For many reasons.
Okay. So then I would just say, like, well, why do you need to lose weight? Why, and keep asking yourself that question, why? Why do you need to lose weight? Oh, I want my clothes to fit better. Well, why do you want your clothes to fit better? Keep digging in there with the whys until you can get to until you can't answer the question anymore. And then you're at your true why. Because when you say like, I want to lose weight or I need to lose weight, you want to make sure that that reason is your reason and not because it's something that you feel you should do. Okay. Or that society has told you need to lose weight. Okay. And then finally, and this one I think is a big one that can really help us not fear failure. And this is to visualize the outcome that you want. Okay. Close your eyes and visualize what exactly it is you want to create. There are a lot of benefits to that, including our brains are designed to go and create and look for what we tell them to look for. And I talked before about the reticular activating system in our brain. It's sometimes abbreviated RAS. Okay. And that is the part of our brain that goes looking for what you tell it to look for. So I gave this example of you buy a new red car, and then all of a sudden, now that you're driving around in your new red car, you start noticing other new red cars, whereas before you wouldn't have noticed them at all. Okay, your brain goes looking for that. So when you tell your brain through visualizing, which is just closing your eyes and running a movie through your mind, when you tell your brain what it is it should look for, it gets busy creating that for you. It gets busy looking for that for you. Okay. Super, super important. And if you are imagining or visualizing success, you really improve your chances of getting it. Now, here's the other thing too. And this comes back from my teaching days, because my students used to say to me, well, what if blah, blah, blah? What if this happens? What if that happens? And I would always say to them, like, we don't play the what if game. Okay. Playing the what if game with yourself of imagining all the possible things that could happen, including some negative results or results that you don't want, you're messing with the reticular activating system. Because if you think like this is the result you want, but maybe this will happen, and maybe this will happen, and maybe this will happen, and this will happen, the reticular activating system gets all confused and it's like, wait, what do you want me to do for you? And it may go to work finding the result for one of those what if responses than the one that you want it to go to work looking for. Does that make sense? So just tell yourself, not even going to have, like, I'm not even playing the what if game. This is the result I want. This is the result I'm going after and getting. Okay. ultimately remember that failure is a thought. Okay, it's not getting the result you want and you have a thought about it. We have control over our thoughts. So if the thought that you end up with is not one that you want, you have the power to rewrite it. Okay, you have the power to make that failure mean anything you want. And make sure that you are aligning that with your goals. So, questions, insights, takeaways. You can also put your thoughts in the chat if you would like. That would be great too. What is one thing you're going to do differently in terms of getting your results and not fearing failure? Oh, good. Mary Lou's going to go to gym. I love it. Very good. Because you know what, Mary Lou, if you say like, there's no way I can fail, I'm just going to show up and do my thing. Right? For sure. For sure. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. So remember, failure is nothing to fear. I know Halloween is next week, and so we got all kinds of spooky things going on, but it does not have to be something that we have to fear, even though we know as high achieving women, we are like, we tend to be petrified of failing at something. You have to ask yourself, is it more important to stay in your comfort zone and not get what you really want, or to go out there and give it a try? So let's see, Kristen, actually start no matter for fear of failure. All right, and then Irene, I'm going to practice what to do about failure. Yes, change my mindset. And Linda, excellent. Can't wait to hear more about your workshops. That's awesome. You can't fail. You seriously cannot fail. And that is so funny because when I started doing Lunch and Learn workshops back in August, somebody said to me, well, what if nobody shows up? And I'm like, well, what does that have to do with anything? Like, I'm still doing the workshop no matter what. If I'm here talking to myself, I'm going to do the workshop and I'm going to put it on YouTube, and maybe somewhere down the line we'll find it, right? I had decided ahead of time I couldn't fail at this. And I haven't failed at it because for the last 13 weeks, I've been showing up here with many of you at noon on Wednesdays to talk about something to help you improve your life. So it has been a joy spending this time with you and getting to know many of you. So thank you for being here. As far as the future, this is the last Lunch and Learn of 2022. I have a lot of things coming up in my personal life I need to attend to, including the wedding of my mother, as Mary Lou knows. She's friends with my mom. So I will be focusing on that. I've got a lot of new and totally cool things planned. I do want to tell you guys that the weekend of December 3rd, I'm going to be doing a workshop that is going to be all about creating 2023, the year of me. So we're going to be taking a look ahead and getting clear on what we want 2023 to look like for us. And I'll be telling you about some new opportunities I have in the new year, including a new podcast. So that is super exciting. So are there any questions before we finish up for today? No? All right. Well, thank you, Irene. Thank you, Shauna. Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you, Kristen, for being here. It's been wonderful. So glad that I could spend this time with you. Now, go out there and dream big and don't be afraid of failing. Keep getting at it. You can do anything. Thanks, everybody.